The SUV with me is big, it's imposing, and it's here to take on the Toyota Fortuner and Ford Endeavour. Meet Mahindra's new flagship SUV, the Alturas G4. Alturas translates to heights, and Mahindra clearly wants to scale new heights in the market with this SUV. The Alturas G4 is Mahindra's version of the 4th gen SsangYong Rexton. But where the last gen Rexton was marketed as a SsangYong, the new model proudly wears the Mahindra badge. The toothy grille is typical Mahindra fare, but that's the only point of difference between the Alturas G4 and the international Rexton. The Alturas matches its rivals on size, so this is a big SUV. And it has that butch look buyers in the segment like. The design is brawny yet sophisticated. The HID headlights with the LED DRLs are neatly detailed, the large wheel arches add loads of visual mass to the SUV, and it's neatly styled at the rear too. This is a well turned out SUV. Of the things to bring up, some might find the 18-inch wheels to look a size too small. Also, while the chunky D-pillar adds solidity to the design, the windows for the third row passengers are really small. And like fellow body-on-frame SUVs, the Alturas also sits high up, and the absence of a footboard means you'll need a big step into the cabin. When you do open the door, the driver's seat will automatically slide back to aid ingress, and it is a cool welcome gesture. And there's more of the good stuff on the inside. It's quite a trek into the Alturas cabin, but once you're seated, you'll actually find the view both outside and inside is rather good. On the inside, everything is really well laid out. It feels like a premium SUV, but what really makes the difference is the level of quality. Sure, there is a few hard plastics here and there, like over here, but largely everything is soft to the touch, feels premium. The seats look rich, they're really comfortable, and what about this quilted leather effect on the dashboard? That's something you really see on far more expensive SUVs. The impressive quality is just one part of the story. Mahindra has also given the Alturas G4 plenty of kit. There's a first-in-segment 360-degree surround view camera that is a big help when parking the Alturas. The Mahindra is also the first SUV in the segment to get ventilated front seats. Also part of the package is an 8-way power-adjustable driver's seat with memory, electric parking brake, dual-zone climate control and ambient lighting. The 8-inch touchscreen works fine and does feature Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. There's also a 7-inch screen in the instruments binnacle that gives a whole lot of info including tire pressures, and also has the option of changing the theme of the display. Quite cool. A sunroof is also part of the features list, though it's not a panoramic unit. The Alturas does go the distance in safety with a class-leading 9 airbags. ABS, ESP and active rollover protection are also part of the kit. The fact that the Alturas got a 5-star rating in the Korean NCAP is also very reassuring. Let's switch focus to the rest of the Alturas cabin and talk of the middle row. The middle row of the Alturas G4 has loads and loads of space. Just look at this. I'm nearly 6 feet tall and just see how much legroom and knee room I have. There's lots of width as well, so fitting 3 adults will not be a problem. The seat itself is really comfortable, and as an added advantage, you can adjust the backrest recline to your liking. If there's one thing to bring up, it would be this hump in the roof to accommodate the sunroof mechanism that might eat up into headroom for taller occupants. And what of the third row? Seating in the third row is not the best, but is reasonable by class standards. The seating position is a bit awkward, headroom is also limited, but what really takes away from the experience is this big mass of black plastic on the sides. The windows are really small and give you that cooped in feeling. Boot space is fair. The powered tailgate opens to reveal some usable room with all seats up. Fold the last row down and you'll free up serious room for luggage. Do note the loading lip is very high, so you'll need some serious strength to lift those heavy suitcases. Now let's talk the heart of the matter, the Alturas engine. The Alturas comes powered by a SsangYong 4-cylinder 2.2-litre diesel engine. The single variable geometry turbo unit in current BS4 Avatar makes 180 horsepower at 4000 RPM and 420 Newton meters of torque between 1600 to 2600 RPM. The power and torque figures are midway between the Endeavour 2.2 and 3.2s and very similar to what the Fortuner's 2.8-litre diesel engine produces. The Alturas engine comes mated to a Mercedes-sourced 7-speed automatic unit. Note, Mahindra will not offer a manual on the Alturas. So, what's the big Mahindra like to drive? One of the first things that you'll notice when you get behind the wheel of the Alturas is the level of refinement. The engine is quiet and doesn't really make much of a fuss of the power and performance it has to offer. Road noise is also well contained, as is wind noise, so it's a fairly nice and refined experience. The engine's power characteristics are also quite relaxed. The Alturas engine does make a reasonable amount of power, but it's not got that spike in power delivery that we've just come to expect from large turbo diesel engines. The power delivery and build-up of power is quite linear. It's not exciting, but really, it gets the job done. The Altura's 7-speed gearbox plays its role well, but there are no paddle shifters. Manual shifts are only via small buttons on the gear lever. The Alturas is built on a new frame and the body uses a generous dose of rigid and relatively light high-strength steel. Still, the 4-wheel drive Alturas tips the scale at 2150 kgs and you can feel the bulk in the corners. This is a big SUV and you really feel its size when you're driving in tight confines or when you have to pull off a U-turn. Even when you're driving on a winding road, you feel that you're behind the wheel of something really large. The steering is light, it's not got that real good sense of connection. So on the whole, this is not really an SUV that you'd want to hustle around the bends. A quick word in on ride comfort. The roads within Ambi Valley are really smooth, so it wouldn't be fair to give a definite verdict on the Altura's ride comfort. However, on the few bumps, it does tend to feel a bit lumpy, something which we've seen and experienced on other ladder frame chassis SUVs like the Fortuner as well. It's no Endeavour at high speeds but does hold its own on broken patches. The Alturas will be available in a lower trim 2-wheel drive version, but the full spec model we are driving has quite a few off-road goodies. Unfortunately, in the limited time we've had with the Alturas, we've not had a chance to take it off-road, but you will be happy to know that it's got loads of ground clearance. There's a rotary selector for the shift-on-the-fly 4-wheel drive system, and there is also low range. There's also hill start assist and hill descent control, so it's got the right ingredients. We can't wait to spend more time with the Alturas G4 to test it in more everyday conditions and also see how it fares off-road. But the first impression of Mahindra's flagship is positive. It looks good outside and in, is well equipped, drives fine, and pricing also promises to be competitive by class standards. The last gen Rexton didn't quite make a mark, but by the look of things, the Alturas G4 is set to take over the mantle as a proper alternative to the Ford Endeavour and Toyota Fortuner.
The luxury SUV segment is a hugely popular one in India, and in the late 90s, Mercedes pioneered this segment with the M-Class. Well, in 2015, they changed the way their cars were badged and all the SUVs were going to be called GL with the suffix of the sedan that they were based off. That's when the M-Class became the GLE. So it wasn't really a new car at that time, it was just a facelift, but taking on the new nomenclature. Now I'm here in San Antonio, long way away from home, to actually test drive what is the all-new GLE. I'm going to spend the next 2 days checking out all the variants and telling you all about it. The new GLE is bigger in length and width, and both front and rear track have also expanded. There's also more space that's been created between the front and rear wheels. In fact, the wheelbase has increased by about 80 mm. So yes, this new GLE has grown. However, it's not as tall as before, and especially when you view it from the rear, it looks a lot squatter. In fact, the rear profile could easily be mistaken for an overgrown hatch, and that somehow misses the mark of the traditional SUV look. From all other angles though, the GLE plays the part well. In front, the octagonal area housing the grille is now more upright, and the chrome-plated underguard rises right up to the grille, adding more beef. You get two different kinds of grilles. One is the single bar with the pin mesh, and there's the double bar with the hexagonal mesh, and it depends on which variant you have. There are flatter headlamps that spread out on the edges, carrying the double inverted L LEDs, giving it an additional impression of width. From the side, the A-pillar is a tad more upright, and the trademark wide C-pillar is still there, though the wheels now fit flush to the body and it looks much nicer. There are sharp creases on the bonnet and along the body, adding sportiness, but the edges are all softer and more subtle now. And despite that squat look from the rear, the GLE is a visually appealing SUV. On the inside, it's a whole new world. Gone is the upright iPad-like infotainment center, and you get the single glass that stretches across your dials and the infotainment screen like we've seen in the E-Class. Below that, you get now 4 AC vents. The central console has also changed dramatically. You've got a larger touchpad over here. You've got grab handles because it's an SUV. There's a huge panoramic sunroof, which really opens out the interior. But on the whole, this new design, it's less fussy, it's more modern, and it definitely feels luxury. The MBUX, or the Mercedes-Benz user experience, has been enhanced with 40 new features. Some of them really interesting ones.
For example, we feature a global proximity detection. This means the system always knows where your hand is and highlights the features accordingly. You can, for example, now enter the navigation menu, and you see this control bar on the bottom, which is disappearing after a few seconds, roughly 5. As soon as you go there, when you need it, it comes up again. But it is also working for the touchpad. As soon as you reach there, control bar is coming up. However, and this is the intelligent part of it, now if you go here for your key, your phone, you're always with your arm on top of the touchpad, right? But it's not activating.
Oh, that's
you
right.
see?
Yes.
This is the intelligence, which you see only if you're here with your hand, then it's activating. We can also robustly distinguish between driver and passenger, which means you see already here, the driver is interacting now, whereas when you go there, the passenger seat will be highlighted, will be enlarged.
Let's focus on the area of interest to the Indian consumer, the back seat. Well, for starters, getting into the rear seat is much easier now. But then you do sit much lower than you did in the previous GLE. So visibility to the front isn't as great as before, but as far as room goes, there is just so much more of it that's opened out. Leg room is really, really massive. I may be small, so this looks considerably large, but I can tell you even a 6-foot footballer would be extremely, extremely comfortable in here. There's loads of headroom. The panoramic sunroof extends all the way to the back, opening out even the back seat, and there's definitely more width as well. Well, the good news is now you can opt for a third row of seats with the GLE. Yes, it is small in the third row of seats. You do sit a bit knees up, but look, I'm 5'4". I fit in here with this seat in its rearmost position. The middle row of seats now, you can opt for ones that have travel as well, and I'll get in front and show you that in a bit. So you can adjust the space between the middle row and the rear row and get a lot more room in here. Best for small children though on long journeys. Getting in and out, however, is at the touch of a button, so not too difficult. Let's show you that. Now, as you can see, I have a large amount of travel. It's about 100 millimeters of travel for the middle row. So finding the middle ground between rear and middle row should be easy enough. For now, let's go to the front of the car to get behind the wheel. There's a feature called Adapt, where I can actually set my height. Let's get this down to 5 feet 4 inches. Yep, that's my height. I do start positioning. Do I want to position the seat and steering wheel using the height entered? Yes. And as you can see, I'm being given the optimal driving position without having to really adjust any of the features myself. And this is something I can save as well as a profile, so every time I get into the car, I can use it. Settling in behind the wheel, I noticed a marked difference in the way it felt from there. Now, the initial impression when you get into the car is that, this feels more car-like. You sit closer to the ground. You don't get that upright, off-the-floor feeling that you got in the earlier GLE. Adding to the feeling is the fact that the central part of the dash sits quite high to house the new integrated screen. Still, visibility is good, and with a large amount of height adjust to the seat, you still get enough of a commanding feeling. My journey around San Antonio began in the new 2-litre 4-cylinder diesel that we have seen recently in the facelift C-Class. Now, when you start off, the engine has a bit of a gurgle, and if you mash your foot to the floor, it does take on a gruffer note. There's no thumping wave of torque. Power delivery is really smooth and evenly spread. Even ambling around, gently tap the throttle and you get power instantly. The 9-speed shifts down very quickly and efficiently as well. And whether you're at lower speeds or whether you're at high speed and want an overtake maneuver, it just offers up power equally quickly. In fact, the gearbox does so well that I really didn't find the need to use the paddles. After the 300D, I also had a short stint in the 400D, powered by a 3-litre 6-cylinder. The engine has exhaust gas after treatment, and Mercedes say it's ready to meet the Euro 6D emission norms in 2020, which means our norms in 2020 will be easily met too. It's a powerful engine with 330 HP and a strong 700 Nm of torque that you can feel pushing you back into your seat as you floor the throttle. Even with gentle dabs of the throttle, the gearbox rapidly drops a couple of gears and you get a strong surge. If it's power that you're looking for, then this is the engine to pick. The area around San Antonio is pretty flat, and we had to head quite a distance to find a bit of variation on the road. But we did manage to finally find a small section of winding road. The other big difference really is the way the GLE feels around corners. The steering has more feel. It feels far more sure-footed, stable, planted, and definitely better to drive. While the 300D and the 400D that we drove had the standard air suspension, it was the e-active suspension in the 450 petrol that was interesting with its new lowrider-like attitude. So I'm going to show you the e-active body control, where an electric motor actually works in tandem with the systems of the cars to actuate the dampers at individual wheels. And the best way to show it to you is from the outside, because this car can really do a jig. For this, I have to be in drive. I have to shift into off-road mode. Yep, we're all set. And then we have something called the free driving assistant, which if I start, and you can see this, starts with a gentle rocking and then gets more pronounced and will happen for about 30 seconds. This is to be able to allow you to get out of, tough situations like when you're stuck in soft sand or if you're stuck in a spot of slush. Rocks the car to be able to allow you to get the grip to get out. We'll stop that and we get back into the other mode, which is the individual wheel control. I can make this car do some crazy stuff, and yes, this is going to make it a far more capable off-roader. Basically, the system works with the dampers connected to an intelligent motor in the 48-volt system that enables hydropneumatics to actuate each damper individually. It was more fun than anything else for us on this ride, since we did not have the off-road conditions to give it a real try. However, out on the road we did get a feel of the petrol power plant that is a mild hybrid with a 48-volt electric motor. Power comes in strongly from about 1600 RPM, and the electric motor even provides additional boost for short bursts. With a claimed 0 to 100 of 5.7 seconds, it is quick. But the fact is, whether you want a sporty dash or a relaxed cruise, this engine is happy to serve up the right manners. Lastly, let's talk about ride. There was a big difference between all the cars we drove, with the 300D feeling very firm in all modes and the 400D feeling very soft in comfort and better in sport. The 450 with the air suspension and higher profile tires and the 450 E-Active were the ones that felt like a Mercedes should. But it's all down to the tires and suspension tuning, which will be adapted to India, so we best reserve comment until then. This spanking new GLE will have better performance, with the 300D replacing the current 250D, the 400D replacing the 350D, and the 400 petrol will now become a 450. The interiors are also modern and smack of quality, it's loaded with tech, and it is now a much more capable off-roader. Merc has the advantage, with an already spacious interior becoming even more roomy. And the kicker really is the 7-seat option. The new GLE is definitely sufficiently armed and equipped to take on the competition.